Thank you for joining us on this edition of the show. My guest has been at the forefront of empowering people to be in control of their digital identities and the role that blockchain can play. But that's on the interview segment. We've got a lot more lined up for you, but first, some tech news and updates. This is Tech Trends, and I'm Chukwemeka Agbata.
Science and technology are a propellant for building a thriving country, and the happiness of the people and the future of the country hinge on their development.
Getting around in a busy city like Lagos could sometimes be a daunting task. With over 20 million people living in the state, a large percentage of the population rely on public transport for their mobility, and it's not unusual to ask strangers for directions when commuting. It's also not unusual to get misleading directions and miss one's way. This team at Road Peppers saw the problem, and they sought to provide a solution to the challenge of transport navigation.
Primarily, one of the things we did see, not just in Lagos, Nigeria, was that there was a lack of data to public transit data. So for instance, there's a story I typically tell, and it started off while I was traveling. In 2012, I was on a flight from London to Lagos, and there was this guy who was sitting, but I had to connect to London. There was a guy sitting right next to me on the flight. It was the first time leaving America, going to Europe, and he had asked me if I knew how to get to a specific place there. So, being someone who actually had gone a couple of places as well to Europe, so I took a species for him, and there's something called TFL there. Still a little bit popular now, but the likes of Google Maps now have more predominance in that market space. So I took his laptop and I planned his trip for him. I saw the excitement on his face, was really happy about the whole thing. But then I thought to myself, what if this guy was coming to Nigeria or a similar African nation, or like we see, Oyoluwa? Even within this Lagos, people who stay on the island and the mainland, it feels like a different world when you cross over. So helping people actually finding it easier to actually navigate the cities in terms of how to get from point A to point B without too much hassles and the weariness of having to talk to strangers.
By using an artificial intelligence chatbot named Lara, Lagosians can now get public transport navigation with fare estimates for commercial buses, kekes, cabs, or the lag bus. This way, they can plan, commute, and connect better on their trips.
This is the map of Lagos. For each of these layers, you're seeing actually queries, interactivity happening in different places. So you can see someone asking for questions around the corridor here, towards here. You can see all these whole connections. So it's quite a very busy city of people actually asking directions.
Lara is built specifically for the average Nigerian, helping people get around from point A to B in the most convenient way possible.
So you can open up Lara from your home screen. It says, good morning, Sam. I would like to get to today. I would like to get to channels, TV. I would like to confirm start from current location. Yes. So it tells me walk to where Kejanda Bridge allows for shop right, or to do beggar, take a bus going to Ozopik and then from Opik find a way down to channels. Alright, thank you, and I can read that and tell you thank you. And some feedback. Cool. And if I wanted to get another direction, claim a chat. We can try Herbert Macaulay way. No, I want to start from beggar. What do you do, beggar? Found it perfect. Yeah, so it says from Berger, take what's going to scan straight, get up a Freeman, alternate options. There are things that Lara gives as well too. So if I wanted alternate options, I could also get alternate options. Or I could even save it for a later purpose if I didn't want to use I'm on the go and whatnot. So those are things Lara can help out with.
Lara uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the direction layer to provide detailed navigation. And since she's a chatbot, it's just like chatting with a friend or family. But Lara's finesse doesn't mean the team didn't struggle at first to find the best business model.
One of the things we learned along the lines of lessons, sometimes when you're pushing out a new product that's totally novel, it isn't like your bread and stew that people actually used to. There's a lot of onboarding that actually is required for the market. So that also requires that whole initial learning curve rather for users to move along with. So that's one challenge. I mean, there's also the usual challenge like policies and whatnot, infrastructures, funding as well too, because I mean that's one of the things we did have a lot of challenge with. I mean, we're mostly bootstrapped. We did get some initial financing investment during the Facebook Accelerator 2018, but we decided to focus on the path that actually leads to profitability and focusing well on the business just for growth as opposed to raising funds for now.
As the team at Road Peppers continue to improve on Lara's technology, the Informal Directions platform will enable commuters move around with ease and change the transportation experience of many.
Three university students have designed and built a robotic dog that walks and barks when it hears any sound. Designed as a black-furred robotic guard dog, the Nigerian students hope it will help fight insecurity in the country when adapted and mass-produced. Solely for security reasons, the robot dog reacts to sound and motion and begins to bark, while the owner can view the cause of its barking on a mobile device without the risk of stepping out into danger. This robotic dog is the invention and final year project of 3 students of the Adekunle Ajasin University in southwest Nigeria.
This is the camera of the dog, which is also called the eyes of the dog. When the dog detects a motion through the motion sensor, after seeing, immediately it is sending an electric pulse into the dog. It sends also to the camera, and then the camera helps the owner to interact with the dog to see what the dog is actually sensing.
Adeyi and his friends started the theoretical aspects and initial aluminium structure of their project in 2019, but could not come together because of COVID-19 restrictions and lockdowns. They were able to complete it in 2021 after adding sensors, the camera, and fur skin to give the robot a more realistic look.
So I may be in my room, and once I hear the sound of the dog barking, I can just connect my device and just want to see the person in front of the robotic dog. I can even take the picture of the person. I can do the video of the person.
One of the major reasons why we opt for this robotic dog is for us to use it to tackle what the nation faces, which is security. With the help of this innovation, the owner of this robotic dog doesn't have to come outside to see why his or her dog is barking before he or she can know why or what is happening at the environment at that particular time.
The students say the robot dog still needs to be developed further to get it moving, able to avoid obstacles on its way, recognize its owners, and operate in all weather conditions. But the cost of parts, all which have to be imported, remains a challenge. However, the team has a prototype of what the robot should be able to do when complete. Jalili Adedeji, a research scientist at the Adekunle Ajasin University, is supervising the project.
We want the dog to be more aggressive, and we want it to interact with human being, so that it can be used for defense.
It has more advantages ahead of the normal dog that we have.
there are the normal dog has limitations. It can be shot at. But unlike this, even being shot at, it is still perfectly okay. It will still serve its job. And then when we start looking at the next version of the dog, it will have other features that this version 2 is not having.
Nigeria is battling an Islamist insurgency in the northeast and a spate of kidnappings for ransom in the north and northwest. Deployment of technology has been touted in the past as a means of curbing insecurity. Boston Dynamics humanoid robot Atlas has been showing off its new skill, parkour or free running. A video shows Atlas leaping over obstacles, doing backflips and even falling flat on its face during practice runs. The team says if a robot can develop the same movement and flexibility as the average adult, then the range of potential applications will be practically limitless.
Parkour is a useful organizing activity for our team because it highlights several challenges that we believe to be important. First, how do we build a high power density mobile robot that's capable of extended athletic behavior? How do we design control algorithms that can create a variety of behaviors and control them robustly? And how do we connect perception to action in a way that both captures long-term goals like getting from point A to point B and short-term dynamic goals like adjusting footsteps and applying corrective forces to maintain balance.
Atlas stands 5 feet tall, weighs 190 pounds, uses hydraulics and battery-powered electric motors for movement and has 3 onboard computers. It is designed to be used as a research and development tool, and its Boston Dynamics team are encouraged to push it to the limit.
It can be frustrating sometimes. The robots crash a lot. It's not the robot just magically deciding to do parkour. It's kind of a choreographed routine, much like, a skateboard video or a parkour video where, it's an athlete that's practiced these moves dozens or hundreds of times even to get to that, that high level, that exciting, capability. So we're kind of doing the same thing here with Atlas. We're exploring, how to push it to its limits, sometimes operating at those limits. And, we learn a lot from that in terms of how to build robots that can survive, falling on their face and getting back up and doing it again. We also learn a lot about the behavior, the control, the thing that, puts one foot in front of the other.
These videos are a true team effort. First, of course, we have the software team who is responsible for creating all the behaviors and control software required to execute the behaviors reliably on the robot. We have a hardware team who's responsible for making strategic upgrades to our robots that enable things like extended dance and parkour routines. Our technicians debug and repair a variety of issues that can range from broken mechanical parts to hydraulic leakages to electrical failures. And our operations staff is responsible for building these environments and repairing them when robots crash through them and helping us run the many, many tests required to get this kind of a demonstration to a high degree of reliability.
The team says Atlas has evolved over the last decade and is now able to adapt movement already in its repertoire based on what its cameras see. The result is it does not need to be pre-programmed for every motion. Instead, the team creates a smaller number of template behaviors that can be matched to the environment and executed online. Boston Dynamics staff say they are helping design the foundation for the skills the next generation of robots will need.
Next is my chat with Monique Morrow, co-founder Humanized Internet. Stay with us.
Digital identity has been established as one of the most significant technology trends on the planet. It's a set of validated digital attributes and credentials for the digital world, similar to a person's identity for the real world. Usually issued or regulated by a national ID scheme, a digital identity serves to uniquely identify a person online or offline. Although your physical identity and your digital identity are different, the concepts are the same. Both need to be protected. You need to ensure that you are not providing your information to people, systems, or websites that cannot be trusted. The concept of digital identity might sound complex, but it's quite easy to grasp. It's essentially any personal data existing online that can be traced back to the real you. More like an extended identity card or passport containing almost the same information. A digital identity is more than your login credentials. It consists of thousands of data points that make up a profile of who you are and your preferences. Today, your digital identity is scattered all over the internet. Where social media owns our social identity, retailers own our shopping patterns, credit agencies hold our credit worthiness, your bank owns your payment history. As a result, we are all analyzed in detail to predict our future behavior and monetize our digital identities. In a world where more applications and services are being offered by different service providers, more people and organizations are facing the same problems when it comes to digital identities. Hence the need for a better way for your digital identity to follow you. Our guest is Monique Monroe, president of the Vettery Foundation and co-founder of the Humanized Internet, and she shares her thoughts on how individuals can secure and stay in control of their digital identities.
Monique, glad to have you on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Fred. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Let's look at connectivity as it is today.
Yep.
What are some of the danger signs that you see with the way the internet is evolving?
I think the way the internet is evolving right now is there are things we have to pay attention to. Is one, from the business perspective, is what I will call ethical use of the internet. You know, what are our ethics? How do we use that? Technology is not, has no agency, so it's mainly about the ethical use. One of the alarming things that I am seeing is how people are abusing the internet to abuse others. If you think about it, if I don't like you, I could actually put a picture about you and say that you were doing bad things to other people. So that's the thing that we have to pay attention to, is the abuse of the internet, or using the internet for abuse, abuse against people. I'm paying attention to cyber mobbing, with children involved, which is very important. Parents need to be involved with their kids on responsible use of the internet. What happens is that the way children use the internet, especially with the mobile phone, they could actually, we were all teenagers once. We all know that space very well. And it's hard, right? And so, when you were bullied, unfortunately, people get bullied. But now it's a terrible thing that's being done with these tools. And what happens is that, what we're seeing is that a high rate of suicide amongst teenagers, particularly. I mean, that depends on the geography, but it's something to pay attention to.
Interesting. I mean, everything you just said now, they are happening already. These are real challenges, but I mean, it begs the question why, what needs to happen. What are some of your thoughts on the way forward?
Oh, it's a great question, Fred. I mean, because it's a dynamic look. It's a problem that starts, or a problem. There are areas that we have to think about. What is it? How is it in your home? If you think about it, Steve Jobs, and Bill Gates never allowed their children to have phones until they were young adults, quote unquote. And there was a reason for that, right? Because it was, how are you going to protect them from, once you're in that cyberspace, you're in the cyberspace. And so it's one area. So what do you do at home? Number one. And I think that's one. Number two is businesses. That's one aspect. The technology companies have to define responsible use. I mean, that's where everybody's looking at it. As you can think, if you smoke a pack of cigarettes, they say, well, these cigarettes could cause cancer. You can say, well, this is how the technology was defined for responsible use, you know? And I think the third thing is doing what we're doing today is through your super podcast, I mean, an interview is to get people aware, to have that sense of awareness of what of the potential abuse can be. And that means also looking at how you use privacy, how you use these tools, Instagram, and so on. The thing you have to be cognizant of is once you're on the internet. Now, you choose to be, right? Well, once you're on the internet, whether it's through all of these wonderful technologies, Instagram, and whatever your favorite tool is to show and have a dialogue, you can never remove yourself. It's forever and ever and ever and ever there. And so, you have to think about when you're going for a job interview, people will actually start looking at Instagram, they'll start looking at what you were doing in Facebook, and they start looking at that and going, well, you say, well, yeah, but I was young then. And they're kind of thinking, so it's like, it's that, I mean, because it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. No, Fred, it's a wonderful tool. So much is happening. And with COVID, look at how you and I are connecting. Yeah. It would have been great, to have traveled and to have met you face to face, whether, we meet in Lagos or wherever we want to, wherever we meet, and I've been invited many times to on the continent, but we can't anymore. And right now, because of the way we have this pandemic. And if anything, this pandemic has done is promoted more and more use of the internet. And so that's the thing that we have to now be really cognizant of. Yeah.
All right, Monique, my final question, because time is never...
It's never a final question, Fred.
With blockchain, with robotics, with AI, how complicated do you see data privacy becoming, for example?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question. Well, all of these, when you think about the Internet of Things and things, everything exudes data. We are just pulsating data. You wear an Apple Watch or whatever watch you're wearing, you're pulsating data. So privacy becomes a very major topic. I'm also involved with the World Economic Forum on data policy on privacy, because here's the thing. You should be able to control where your data is going and for what purpose. And that flips the discussion a bit. You could have a health problem and your data is going to insurance companies or for other research and you don't know it. This is what they call self-sovereign identity. I think the privacy issue is one that we need to resolve for. It's not just having privacy laws in place. It's more or less how, because we have compliance, companies will look at compliance and companies will look at risk, and countries, I think even Kenya's, for example, in Kenya, they're looking at adopting very similar privacy laws like in Europe, like this whole notion of GDPR. But I think we need to go beyond the laws. I think we have to think about how do you or should you control the data? And people will say, well, you can never control the data. I said, well, you could probably think about what is transparent and around how that data flows. And I think we need to have much more of a discussion on that. And, if somebody is some entities in the background looking at your data and monetizing your data and you're not knowing, and you're not part of the monetization process, you'd like to be, but you're not, wouldn't you like to be? So this topic, we can continue this topic. And for your listeners and viewers, there's a lot of things that have to happen in this one.
Monica, I'm sure we'll come back to this again, but thank you for being on the show today. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Fred. Pleasure.
I've been chatting with Monique Morrow, who doubles as the president of the Vetri Foundation and co-founder of the Humanized Internet. Both are featured helping people to safeguard their digital identities. I particularly like the fact that Monique shared how blockchain can help, particularly for a young continent like Africa. Loads of opportunities for scale, if you ask me. This is where we do the cutting on this edition of the show. But it doesn't end here. The conversation continues online. We are Tech Trends TV on social media. Also watch the show on Channels TV YouTube or cfablog.ng. For Tech Trends, I'm Chukwemeka Agbata.